So question 11, here is a list of ingredients for making 10 scones. Scones or scones, how you say it, that's varies across the country. Ingredients for 10, and we've got the list of ingredients. Mia wants to make 25 scones, work out the number of, work out how much sugar she needs. So if we've got 25 that we want to make, and we've got a recipe for 10, then in effect, we want 2.5 times by the recipe. So if we look at sugar, sugar was 40, so we need to do 40 times by 0.5. Sorry, times by 2.5. And you can break this down. You could do the full multiplication if you wanted to. Alternatively, I would probably say, well, 2 lots of 40 would be 80, and a half of 40 would be 20. So if I add them together, I would get 100. Question 12, increase 240 by 20%. So you've got 2 methods for this, really. My preferred method will be much quicker. So if I say that the full amount is going to be 240, I'm going to break it down by saying that 10% would be 24, and 20% then would be double that, 48. So 120, the increase, would be this value plus this value, which would give me 288. Okay, the second method I could have done, if I want 120%, because an increase of 20% is a multiplier of 1.2. So I could have done 240 times by 1.2, which is going to be the same as 24 times by 12. And 24 times by 12, well, let's set it up properly. 24 times by 12. 2 times by 4 is 8. 2 times by 2 is 4. 0 in the units column. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. Add the 2 numbers together, we get the same value, 288. Right, so I'll split those off with 2 methods. Right, question 13. Write down a factor of 60 that is between 80 and 14. So if we think about the factors of 60, we could write them all down as factor pairs: 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, and 6 and 10. Factors between 8 and 14 then, so I haven't got any in this column. In this column, I've got 2. So I could go for 10, or I could go for 12. Right, write down a factor. So I'm not going to be overly complicated. I'm not going to go over the top. I'm going to write down the first one, 10. I've shown both of them. I've shown that there are 2, but I'm going to write down 10. But the reality is you could have had 12 as well. Right, and that's it for the page. So quickly to the mark scheme then. Trying to get a bit quicker with this. Question 11 was 1 mark for showing 2.5 and 1 mark for the 100. And then for question 12, we've got 1 method mark for showing 48, and then 1 method mark for showing an attempt to add them together, and then 1 mark for the answer. So arguably that, and that. Right, question 13, 1 mark for 10 or 12. Right, question 14. Faye's planning a trip to a theme park for 1 adult and 2 children. So key information I'm going to underline as I go. Here are the costs for the trips. So the total cost of petrol, that won't be affected by the number of people. Tickets to the theme park will be. So 33 for an adult, 24 for a child. And the meals, £12 for an adult, £10 for a child. Faye has £200 to spend. Will she pay all the costs? How much money does she have left over? Oh, sorry, she pays for all the costs. How much money does she have left over? So we need to work out. So I'm going to write down the full sum and then I'll break it down afterwards. So we need to do an individual cost of 23. We need the price of 1 adult, which would be 33. We need the price of 2 children at £24.50. We also need the price of 1 adult ticket and 1 child's ticket. Right. So I'm going to add these up in pairs to start with. So we'll do it like this. So 23 plus 33 plus 15. I'm going to put that there for now. 2 times by £24.50 is going to be, if I double that, that's going to be £49. And if I double that, that would be £20. So 20 and 49. I need to also add. If I add those all up together, could add them separately if you want to. So 3 plus 3 is 6, 11, 20. So 2 and a 0, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I make it that she would have spent a total of £140. So if she spends £140 and the ticket she has £200, it actually says how much money does she have left. So I've not answered the question yet. Minus 140 is going to give her £60 left over. And you may well have broken that down differently, but that's how I've gone for now. Okay, question 15. In Norway last year, the lowest temperature was minus 15 degrees C. In Norway last year, the highest temperature was 42 degrees greater than the lower temperature. Okay, work out the highest temperature in Norway last year. So in effect, what we need to do here is minus 14 plus 42. So I'm going to change that around slightly. I'm going to do it in the other order. So I'm going to treat that as 42 minus 15. And then 42 minus 15, I'm going to set up with a basic subtraction. So 5 take away 2, I can't do. So I'd take one, I'd borrow. 12, well, I convert. So 12 take away 5 is going to be 7. And then 3 take away 1 would be 2. So 27 degrees would be the maximum temperature. Right, and that's it for the page. So marks were awarded on this for P1 for the process of start of the process to find the cost of the trip. So I picked up my P1 for this line here before I've done anything. It's just a processing mark. We then get processing mark for working out. It's not strictly done how I've done it. There is a mark there. There's a mark in effect. What they've suggested is a mark for that or a mark for that. So we'll go the second mark there. And then a final mark for doing the subtraction for our 4 marks. And for question 15, we're looking at 1 mark for the subtraction and 1 mark for the answer. Right, question 16 then. So the bar chart shows information about the total rainfall each month for 4 months in a city. So total rainfall in centimetres, and we've got months, January, February, March, April. In May, the rainfall was 35 centimetres. In June, the rainfall was 20 centimetres. Use this information to complete the bar chart. Okay, so my May bar needs to be up to 35. So I'm in effect just going to put the points in that I want to plot. And then in June, I'm looking at 20. So I need to give a gap. I'd argue that we should have had an extra bit on the grid, but we haven't. That's fine. Right. And then straight lines to draw, similar looking bars. Pick the bars. And there we go. For part D, use the information to, sorry, part A, use the information to complete the bar chart. We've done that. Okay, Rupa says in February there was 15.5 centimeters of rainfall because the bar is halfway above 15. Explain why Rupa is incorrect. So what he said is correct. It is halfway above 15. However, each square on the bar represents 5 centimeters. So that's his mistake. Explain why Rupert is wrong. You could simply state what the correct answer is. You don't necessarily need to state what he's done wrong. As February was 17.5 centimeters, as each square represents 5 centimeters. Okay, and questions. We'll go to the mark scheme for that then. So, following from the mark scheme, we've got an M1 a method mark for correct bars. So it's 1 mark for each correct bar, basically. 1 mark, 1 mark. And for part B, we've got half a square is worth 2.5, or it goes to 17.5. So we got the mark there. Right. Question 17. Here is a list of 8 letters. Write down the mode. So mode means most. Which one happens the most? So A happens the most. So the mode is A. For B, on the probability scale, mark of across the probability that there will be that this letter will be B. So we've got 1, 2 B's. So the probability of, don't really need it at the moment. Probability of B is going to be equal to 2 out of 8, which is the same as 1 out of 4. So 1 out of 4 would be a quarter. So we're going to go there. Find the probability that the letter will be a C. So if we've got 1 C, the probability of it being C, probability of it being C is going to be equal to 1 out of 8. 1 out of 8. Okay, so marking, is that the only one on the page? No. Right, 0.3 is a fraction. Well, that means 3/10. So 3/10, or 3/10. Right, so we've got question 17, 1 mark for A, 1 mark for the cross in the correct position, which is there, and then 1 mark for 1/8. And then again, 1 mark for 3 out of 10. There we go then. Right, so if we move on to question 18. So 72 people did a test. So I'm going to underline key information again. 20 of the 32 adults who did the test passed. 6 of the children who did the test failed. Use this information to complete the frequency tree diagram. So frequency tree diagram, we've got 72 people to start with. 20 of the 32 adults who did the test passed. So that gives us 2 pieces of information here. It gives us that 32 adults did the test and that 20 of them passed. And then it tells us 6 of the children who did the test failed. So that there is the information from the question. There's normally a processing mark for just inputting that information. And then we've got starting to work some of the values out. So I'm going to start over here. So if we had 32 adults do the test, there are 72 people in total. It means that we must have 40 children. If 20 passed the test, 20 adults passed the test and 32 did the test, we must have had 12 that failed. And then if we have 40 children that did the test, 6 failed, then that would tell us that 34 passed. So we've got a better pass rate for children. One of these people is picked at random. Find the probability that the person is an adult who failed the test. So one of these people is picked at random. So that tells us the denominator. So if we're picking out of all of the people, that would be 72. Find the probability that the person is an adult who failed the test. So we've got 12 adults that failed the test. So 12 would be our numerator. Doesn't say to simplify the fraction. However, if I wanted to, so I don't think I'd lose a mark, but 6 goes into 12 and into 72. It goes, 12 goes into 12 and 72. It goes once into 12 and it would go 6 times into 72. So 1 out of 6 would be my simplified answer. Right, if we look at marks for this question, we have got quite nicely done. So for my red writing, that would be 1 mark. And then if I've got either 40 or 12, the 40 or the 12, that's an extra mark. And then the final mark for the complete frequency table. frequency tree, sorry. And then part B, we've got this mark is given for the method to find the probability. For example, you could have had a number over 72 would give you a mark, or 12 over another number, but it's 1 mark for the numerator or the denominator, 1 mark for the correct fraction. Question 20, a shop sells jars of coffee. Each jar of coffee costs £4. Michael has £23. Work out the greatest number of coffee jars that he can buy. So if we look at 23 divided by 4, well, 23 divided by 4, 4 goes into 23 5 times fully with 3/4 left over. So it's 5 3/4. So the greatest number of coffee jars that he can buy would be 5. And part B. In a sale on Wednesday, jars of coffees are sold at half price. Michael thinks that he can now buy exactly twice the number of jars he bought for £23. Is Michael correct? You must give a reason for your answer. Well, if we think about it, now we're doing 23 divided by 2. So he would actually be able to buy 11 and a half. Well, 23 over 2 would be the same as 11 and a half. So would he be able to buy double? No. He would be able to buy 11. You could have also said that if we double 3/4, we would get a number bigger than 1. That would be acceptable as well. Or 0.75 times by 2 is 1.5. So the leftover money, he'd be able to buy an extra 1 out of. Okay, and that's it for that page. So if we, is that, yes. So for question 20, we're looking at a method for dividing by 4 and then 5. For part B, we've got Michael is incorrect, and then, for example, showing 11. Michael can buy 11 jars. Okay, and that brings us on to 21. So I'll stop the video and restart shortly.